All right, let's go. What is NeuFit therapy?
Okay, so NeuFit is a combination of neurology and fitness. And the Newbie is the device that we use, and it's a direct current electrical stim device. From a therapy standpoint, it's different. We use it for both therapy and for fitness. So from a therapy standpoint, someone comes in who, say, has an injured shoulder, like a real common one is a torn supraspinatus, which just, impinges when they're trying to bench press or something like that.
Is that your shoulder?
Yeah, it's in the shoulder. Yeah.
Supraspinatus. You didn't know that was it.
Supraspinatus. It's an external rotator. It's a real small, easy, it's easy to tear. So many people come in with that. It's like a real common one. We try to help people prevent.
You think that's what my husband Grady tore when he fell down the back steps in the ice storm?
I don't know. Since he didn't get an MRI, we'll never know. He might have.
So he did that about 8 months ago, and I cannot believe how much the NeuFit has helped him recover and get his full range back in his shoulder. Right. All right, so keep telling everybody.
Okay, so when you go to traditional physical therapy, they're going to take you through some range of motion exercises, kind of progressively loading you, kind of building your range of motion, but they're treating basically the pain, which is a symptom. It's not the actual root cause of the problem. And so they can get you some relief, and they might get you out of pain. It might take you 6 weeks. It might take you several months. Most of the people who come to me have been through the whole racket for a while, and they've been through physical therapy, once or twice, and they just haven't gotten back to where they feel like they're out of pain and able to perform. So when they end up in my lap, we have a completely different process. So we're not physical therapy. We are actually, I guess we're just, the basic idea is that when you have a problem with performance, you've got a weakness problem somewhere else in your body. So there's something in your body that isn't a broken link, somewhere where your nervous system isn't getting a good signal, where you're not getting good blood supply. So what we do is a scanning process where we map your body, and we've got one pad on you as a ground, and then we're scanning you with the other pad. I call it lawn mowing. We're just scanning. We're looking across your whole.
So I want to tell everybody what a pad is. So if you go to your website, you can see that you have somebody wired up with these pads, and they're just kind of.
They're electrodes. We got sticky pads, and then we've got when I'm doing scanning, I use a rubber carbon pad with a wet sponge.
It's kind of like when you go in and they want to do what is that? EKG on you, and they put those little pads on you. So they're kind of like that. You put them on you.
They look that way. Of course, they're not. They're different.
They're not. They are different, and they're 2 by 3 inches, and you put them on your muscle because you know so much about muscles, and you put them on your muscles. And you train the body. But now that you're looking for a mistake.
When I'm scanning for the root cause of a problem, that's where it's very different. Like in physical therapy, you have a person with a torn supraspinatus, torn rotator, and they're going to go in, they're going to do the exact same therapy as the other 10 people who have a torn rotator. With us, we're going to find out why you have that torn rotator, and it's not going to be the same exact treatment as the other person because our bodies are all very unique. So we're looking so one person might have a problem that's down in their arm or close to their elbow. Another person might have a problem back in their scapula. So we're going to scan and we're going to find out where the real problem is, where they're, and the way that shows up is we're sending a signal with that pad to whatever area where the pad is moving. Whatever area that pad is on is sending a signal that the brain interprets as loaded movement. So if the tissue is healthy, then your brain says, oh, that's fine. It just kind of tingles. But when I get over an area that your brain is trying to protect, then I see you try to get away from it. I immediately see you go into compensation, or you might say, ow, get that away from me. So that's actually how we identify the areas to treat. So once we've identified those, basically what areas are not communicating with each other, then we start, this is where the whole neuromuscular reeducation process starts up, because what we're trying to do is teach the body to be able to load in a pattern that it gets a pain signal when it tries to move in that movement pattern. And but now we're re-educating it because we're teaching the brain that it can load those muscles now, and it starts to feel, as I'm cranking the machine up, it actually starts to feel a little easier, because you're adapting as I increase the load. Your brain is basically saying, oh, I was trying to protect, but now I can see that I can get in that position and, oh, well, I guess I can let down some of these governors. So in essence, we're just teaching the brain that it can start removing these governors that it puts in place to keep us from moving in areas that it's trying to, that it feels like it's trying to protect. So it's really about protection patterns. It's all about, pain.
So Grady fell down the steps, hurt his shoulder, rotator cuff, I guess, or something maybe. He comes into you. He can't lift his arm over his head.
He couldn't lift his arm 45 degrees away from his body.
He couldn't even put his shirt on hardly. And he comes in, and the first thing you want to do is go to his shoulder because you think that's where we need to work. And I think you're saying that that's where most physical therapists would go.
Well, that's where the traditional, and mind you, I'm not slamming physical therapy. They obviously are, go to work and go to school for a very long time. I do think the industry is sort of hampered by the insurance industry, medical insurance, because they dictate so many times, this is what they have. So this is the treatment that we're going to pay for. So people end up with these kind of
cookie cutter kind of.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, cookie cutter kind
just total cookie cutter and not really addressing, not really listening to their body and trying to do what they need. And so
you put these pads on Grady's shoulder.
So I scanned and I identified where his hot spots were.
So when you put the pads on his shoulders, you were sending current through his shoulder.
I was sending current through. I don't think it was his shoulder. I think his hot spot was down in his arm.
Well, then you took another pad.
We always put a ground pad usually on the lower back, and then we scan. I start where the pain is, just to really to identify to them, show them that it doesn't actually hurt when they're on the injury, because the pad is only going to the signal from the pad is only going to be interpreted as pain if it's on an area where you're not.
So you could put the grounding pad on his back. You didn't put it necessarily on the back.
I put the ground on his back, and then I scan his body
with another pad.
With the other pad, and I find his primary, hot spot is what we call them. We call them hot spots, or where the primary disconnect is.
Where the pain is.
Well, it's not where the pain is. It's where the root cause of the pain.
Right.
So the pain is in the shoulder, but the root cause of the problem is somewhere else.
So you put the pad on his back as the grounding pad.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to paint a picture for the listener. And then you took this other pad and you put it on his shoulder.
Yeah, I scanned.
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
It was tingling.
Where he was hampered.
Yeah.
On his shoulder. And then you started going down his arms. And as you got down his arm, he flew off the table. It just was like a jolt. And you're like, okay. You're compensating right here, and here's your hot spot. This is what we're going to work on. And it was so counterintuitive.
It would seem that way, but really obviously to me, I've been doing this for so long, it was very logical. So once what we're trying to do is like I said, reconnect these areas. It's kind of like yoga. I mean, not yoga. It's kind of like acupuncture with a load. Acupuncture is about identifying these sort of broken meridians. It's all, our bodies are electric. And, I guess the people who came up with acupuncture 2,000 years ago or longer, understood that and, intuitively just understood that. And so they figured out how to sort of reconnect our electrical connections in the body. But the difference with what we do is we can identify where those broken meridians are, just for lack of a better phrase. And we can also load the pattern. So I can crank up the output, and it's like cranking up the weight. So I can simulate lifting weight or whatever, making those areas bear weight. So it's kind of like I can make you adapt a little bit faster.
Without ever lifting weight.
Without having to lift a weight. You're right.
Without having to damage anything.
Right. We're not putting any, and what I typically do is then I go through what I call mobilization exercises. I start with some basic ones that are sort of normal, just get the shoulder moving. But then I go to exercises that are in the range of motion where they are typically avoiding, like something that would hurt. So if it hurts to scratch your back, if you can't get your arm back there, then I'm going to have you doing some exercises like that. Or if it hurts to, fasten your seatbelt, I'm going to have you simulate fastening a seatbelt. If it hurts to draw your sword, I'm going to have you do some sword pulls. I'm just going to find the areas that you're.
Bring up. Curl your beard to your mouth.
Exactly.
We're going to curl beards to our mouth.
Exactly. We're going to find the movement pattern that your body is trying to protect against, and we're going to have you work in that range. And then I'm going to keep increasing the load as you adapt, and so that you just keep. And the higher I can get you on something like this, usually the better and faster the outcome. Because you feel the difference immediately. Like that's one of the things that I love about this is that you feel the needle move day one. There's no question about it. You can come in at a 6 or 7 in pain, really limited in your range of motion, and by the end of the session, you're like at a 1 or a 2, and you can raise your arm overhead, and you're just like totally moving.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But then it starts to try to creep back because your muscles start compensating.
Well, so what happens is the reason when I do therapy, it's a little different than training. Like I can train somebody, a couple of times a week and get really great results.
And you're talking about muscle training.
I'm talking about the fitness part of things. Right. Yeah, that's different. I can do that a couple times a week. But when I'm trying to do therapy on someone who's got an injury, then I usually want to get those sessions closer together because we're trying to overwrite old neurological patterns, right? So they're pretty etched in. If it's chronic, especially, it's pretty etched in. So
muscles have memory,
right? And so what we're trying to do. So when you feel that needle move, I might get you down to a 2, and then 10 hours later, 11 hours later, you might start to regress a little bit because your body likes to repeat these patterns. It's all about patterns. Our brains are pattern recognition machines, and so we try to go back into that old pattern because it's familiar to us. And so why I like to get in there and do another therapy session is as you start to regress, you might get back up to a 4. Well, then I can catch you and bring you back down to like a 1 or a 0. And then you might regress up to a 2. And then and then eventually I start closing that gap where you come in and you haven't regressed at all. And when you show up a couple of times in a row without where you have not regressed and you're still kind of where you were when you left, then I know it's time to start bridging into more strengthening. So the steps are basically, first step is we want to get your body in balance, which is what I do with my activations, the little muscle activation techniques where I test to make sure that, try to get everything firing that I can. Then I do the machine to remove hot spots. And then the third stage is increase neurological strength. And the last stage is to increase physical strength. So neurological strength.
What is that?
So basically, like your ability to hold positions, like at your end range or something like that. Like if you have a injured shoulder, it might have you holding your arm out in front of you or holding it out the side with maybe even with a little bit of resistance, a little weight.
And that's neurological.
Yeah. So I want you doing basically ISO exercises to try to build. And then while I'm increasing the load, it's going to try to pull you out of position. And your job is to sort of fight against the machine and keep yourself in the correct position. And as you do that, that's where the whole neuromuscular re-education process takes place.
If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the picture in the center of the screen. For more of Kerry's interviews, click either video on the right of the screen. And as always, thank you for watching.